Hi, my name is Nick Bryant, and the name of my presentation is Jeffrey Epstein, The Cover-Up Continues. And over the course of this presentation, I will demonstrate that the Jeffrey Epstein cover-up is currently ongoing. So in 2005, the Palm Beach Police Department had a complaint about Jeffrey Epstein. It was from the parents of a 14-year-old girl, and the Palm Beach police officers talked to the girl, talked to her parents, and the girl described Jeffrey Epstein's home, and she also described his anatomy. So the Palm Beach Police Department decided to investigate at that point, and they found 4 other underage victims of Jeffrey Epstein, and there was a number of corroborating statements from other people regarding those 5 underage girls. So the Palm Beach Police Department was charging Jeffrey Epstein with unlawful sexual activity with 4 minors and 1 count of lewd and lascivious molestation. And they felt like they had an airtight case and they were ready to charge him. And all of a sudden, that investigation was taken away from them, and it was assigned to a grand jury. And a lot of people are somewhat naive about grand juries. New York judge once quipped that special prosecutors of a grand jury have so much power over grand jurors that they could get them to indict a ham sandwich. So, and also in Florida, to have a grand jury for anything other than a capital offense is unheard of. So this grand jury was impaneled, and they came back with, in fact, a ham sandwich. This is from the Palm Beach Post, July 27, 2007. An indictment charging Epstein, 53, was unsealed on Monday, charging him with 1 count of felony adult solicitation of prostitution. So this grand jury did not charge Jeffrey Epstein with a single account of child abuse or having sex with a minor. It indicted him on 1 count of adult solicitation. And the Palm Beach Police Department, they knew that Jeffrey Epstein was guilty, and they became quite vociferous. And they ultimately went, Michael Ryder, ultimately, the Palm Beach police chief, ultimately went to the Department of Justice. And the Department of Justice announced the impaneling of a federal grand jury to investigate Epstein. And then the grand jury was suddenly adjourned. And at this point, the Department of Justice then started clandestine negotiations with Epstein and his dream team of attorneys, which included Alan Dershowitz and Ken Starr. And while the Department of Justice was involved in these negotiations, they had a list of 32 victims of Jeffrey Epstein. So these negotiations ultimately resulted in the sweetheart deal that he received in 2008, which was 18 months in county jail. And then he served 13 months, and he just had to go there at night. And here's a clandestine email between the assistant U.S. attorney prosecuting Jeffrey Epstein and the Epstein attorney, Jay Lefkowitz. Now, their negotiations were so sordid and so beyond the pale that they knew that they had to find a special magistrate or judge to sign off on it. And this is Emery Villafana, the assistant U.S. attorney, writing an email. And she says, our most flexible Palm Beach magistrate is on duty on Monday. So assuming we have signed documents by 1:30 or so, we should be able to get Mr. Epstein arraigned on Monday. So the Department of Justice and Jeffrey Epstein's attorneys are colluding on this. And the deal that they gave Jeffrey Epstein was so atrocious that they had to find a special magistrate to sign off on it. And then the agreement with Jeffrey Epstein and the Department of Justice was sealed, kind of adding insult to injury. and attorneys launching civil suits, and the Palm Beach Post appealed the sealing of Epstein's agreement. And ultimately, the government's sealing of the agreement was overturned in the Fourth U.S. District Court of Appeals. So what did the agreement say? This is Epstein's non-prosecution agreement, and it exonerates everyone who was part of Jeffrey Epstein's pedophilic network. It's quite a stunning document. In consideration of Epstein's agreement to plead guilty and to provide compensation in the manner described above, if Epstein successfully fulfills all the terms and conditions of this agreement, the United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, including but not limited to Sarah Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Groff, and Nadia Marcinkova. So basically, that's why they needed that magistrate, is because this is such a horrific deal. And actually, most lawyers that I've talked to have never heard of a deal like this. So Epstein was allowed to molest and traffic children for another 10 years. And this is an article from the Daily Beast on July 6, 2019. Epstein is in fact arrested for child trafficking. He was arrested in New Jersey at the Teterboro Airport, and the indictment came from the Department of Justice in Manhattan. And this is from a New York Times article on 8/10/2019. Epstein apparently kills himself. So all those questions that were going to be asked about Jeffrey Epstein and his network seemingly died when he killed himself. But attorney William Barr, he vowed that Epstein's co-conspirators should not rest easy. This is from Reuters on August 12th, 2019. William Barr, our illustrious Attorney General, was going to get to the bottom of it, and he was going to make sure that the perpetrators and the procurers not rest easily. And then about 2 weeks later, the New York Times has an article, and they name 6 procurers of Epstein: Ghislaine Maxwell, Sarah Kellen, Leslie Groff, Adriana Ross, Nadia Marcinkova, and Haley Robson. So the New York Times basically puts a number of procurers in an article and shows how they broke the law for Jeffrey Epstein. And it's quite remarkable. The Department of Justice did not act after that article came out. Now here's an article from Reuters in December, and the Justice Department mums the word on Maxwell in September, October, November. Inexplicably, the probe remains at an early stage at the end of December. So Epstein has killed himself, and months later, even after the New York Times has named a bunch of procurers, the probe remains at an early stage. According to the Miami Herald, Virginia Giuffre settled a 2017 defamation lawsuit against Maxwell and received millions of dollars. And in that lawsuit, Virginia actually talked about Maxwell being a procurer, a perp, and also a trafficker. And by the end of January, 3 additional women accused Maxwell of being a perpetrator in lawsuits. So in March, this is from the New York Times, in March, investigators are trying to determine who may have assisted him, Epstein, in recruiting young girls and women to be sexually abused, and who may have moved money to further these efforts. So months down the line, after these civil suits and also an article by the New York Times in naming the procurers, the Department of Justice is still trying to determine who could have been a cohort of Epstein's. even though there's been a tremendous amount of evidence that would tell them who is a cohort of Epstein. So the New York Post reported in July 2nd, 2020, that Ghislaine Maxwell actually had been indicted. She was indicted on one count of conspiracy to entice minors to travel to engage in illegal acts, one count of enticement of a minor to travel to engage in illegal sex acts, one count of conspiracy to transport minors with the intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, one count of transportation of a minor with intent to engage in criminal sexual activity, and 2 counts of perjury. So Maxwell is looking at a maximum of 35 years. Now, with Maxwell looking at 35 years, that in and of itself is a travesty of justice. A number of Maxwell's victims have come forward and said that she was, in fact, a trafficker of underage girls. And trafficking of minors carries a sentence of between 15 years and life. So Ghislaine Maxwell should have been hammered with multiple indictments of child trafficking, and she should be looking at multiple years in prison. And the other procurers, they should also be hammered with multiple counts of child trafficking, and they should be also looking at many, many years in prison. So just to indict Maxwell and then to not indict her on child trafficking charges is already showing that the Justice Department isn't operating in good faith. Now we're going to change gears a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the Butler and the Black Book. Former Epstein house manager Alfredo Rodriguez attempted to peddle Epstein's Black Book to an attorney launching civil suits. And the attorney went to the FBI, and Rodriguez was ensnared in an FBI sting. Now, according to the affidavit of an FBI agent, the Black Book contains the names and contact information of material witnesses and additional victims. And Rodriguez circled the names of potential material witnesses and victims. And a material witness is someone whose testimony can be the critical mass of proving someone broke the law. So here are the Florida victims that were circled by Rodriguez. As you can see, there's a lot of victims in Florida. And Jeffrey Epstein went through a lot of underage girls over the years. And here's potential material witnesses circled by Rodriguez and also named by Virginia Giuffre as perpetrators. And Virginia has passed a lie detector test. Rodriguez circled Ghislaine Maxwell as a perpetrator, and Virginia Giuffre named Ghislaine Maxwell as a perpetrator. Rodriguez circled Alan Dershowitz as a perpetrator, and Virginia Giuffre has named Alan Dershowitz as a procurer. Bill Richardson's name was also circled by Rodriguez. Richardson is the former governor of New Mexico, and he was also the energy czar under Clinton. And Virginia Giuffre has said that Bill Richardson had molested her. And Jean-Luc Brunel is also circled, and Virginia Giuffre has said that she was molested by Jean-Luc Brunel. There's some additional potential material witnesses circled by Rodriguez and also named by Virginia Giuffre as perpetrators. The billionaire Lex Wessner, his name was circled by Rodriguez, and Giuffre has named him as a perpetrator. And the former prime minister of Israel was named by, or was circled by Rodriguez as a perpetrator, and Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak was also named by Virginia Giuffre as a perpetrator. Now, here's some uncircled names in the Black Book named by Virginia as perpetrators. The Duke of York, Prince Andrew, the scientist Marvin Minsky, the billionaire Glenn Dubin, and former Democratic Senator George Mitchell, who was actually the majority leader of the Senate at one point. And with this slide, Epstein had 21 contact numbers for Bill Clinton in the Black Book, and Donald Trump's name is circled. Now, Giuffre has not named Clinton or Donald Trump as perpetrators, but she did say that she saw two minors accompanying Bill Clinton on Epstein's island. We're going to switch gears again, and we're going to look at the blackmail enterprise of Jeffrey Epstein. So when the Palm Beach Police Department originally executed its search warrant on May 1st, 2006, they came across covert cameras hidden within clocks in Jeffrey Epstein's Palm Beach home. In November 18th, 2019, CBS This Morning interviewed Maria Farmer. And this is an excerpt from Maria's interview. The main thing he did when I walked in, and I thought was interesting, he showed me where the cameras, the men monitoring everything were. And I looked on the cameras and I saw toilet, toilet, bed, bed, toilet, bed. So what Maria Farmer is saying here is that multiple rooms in Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion have been wired for blackmail, and that men, as in plural, are looking at the monitors. So Jeffrey Epstein has men that are plural helping him in his blackmail enterprise. This is a Vanity Fair article from August 12th, 2019. And the Vanity Fair article talked to a former girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. And according to her, Epstein said, I collect people, I own people, I can damage people. And getting black and furtherance of showing that Jeffrey Epstein was in fact a blackmail artist. This is a friend of Maxwell's talking about Maxwell. Maxwell also said the island had been completely wired for video. The friend thought that she and Epstein were videotaping everyone on the island as an insurance policy, as blackmail. And this is another quote from Ghislaine Maxwell that has nothing to do with blackmail, but it has everything to do with how these monsters looked upon underage girls. When I asked what she thought of the underage girls, she looked at me and said, they're nothing, these girls, they are trash. They're nothing, these girls, they are trash. So she looks upon these girls as trash, and she treats them as trash, but yet, and she traffics them as trash, but yet she's not indicted on a single count of child trafficking. This is from the New York Times, and a journalist had become acquaintances with Jeffrey Epstein, and of course this was off the record. And then once Epstein died, the journalist wrote an article about his interactions with Jeffrey Epstein. And in it, he said, Mr. Epstein knew an astonishing number of rich, famous, and powerful people and had photos to prove it. He also claimed to know a great deal about these people, some of it potentially damaging or embarrassing, including details about their supposed sexual proclivities and recreational drug use. So Jeffrey Epstein his arrogance is coming out at this point, and he's even telling a journalist off the record that he's about blackmail. And this is from another New York Times article. Federal authorities seized hundreds, possibly thousands of sexually suggestive photographs of girls who appear underage, as well as hand-labeled compact discs with titles like Girls, Pics, Nude, and with the names redacted, and young name redacted plus name redacted. So these DVDs possibly contain blackmail footage of Jeffrey Epstein, given what this article is saying. But yet federal authority, and they certainly have a lot of images of child pornography, but yet we haven't heard anything about that investigation, and don't know whether any of these girls that were on these pornographic films were approached by law enforcement. This is an article from the Evening Standard. This article was published on January 22nd, 2001. This is way before Jeffrey Epstein became infamous. And this is a quote from the article. "He has a license to carry a concealed weapon, once claimed to have worked for the CIA, although now he denies it." And this is another excerpt from the article. "He has the spook connections and pulls the strings worldwide." So this author is definitely thinks that Jeffrey Epstein is working for intelligence. And then another excerpt from the article: "Epstein has joined Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell on 5 of their breaks together in the past 12 months, to Mar-a-Lago, Phuket, Florida, and Windsor, and has also welcomed Prince Andrew to stay at his $30 million New York townhouse at least twice last year." So Randy has distanced himself from Jeffrey Epstein, but there's just, they had so much contact. They obviously had a friendship. Prince Andrew can run, but he can't hide. So this is from the Daily Beast on July 7th, 2019. Alexander Acosta was the U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida that ultimately signed off on Jeffrey Epstein's sweetheart deal in 2008, where he spent 13 months in a county jail for molesting a number of, although he wasn't charged, he was charged with 1 count of molestation, but the Department of Justice knew of 32 victims. And Alexander Acosta was actually, after he served as U.S. attorney and participated in covering up Jeffrey Epstein's enterprise and gave him, signed off on the non-prosecution agreement, he was bumped up to be Donald Trump's labor secretary. And actually, he became Donald Trump's labor secretary after hiding, after this egregious cover-up. So this is kind of interesting. When Acosta was transitioning to labor secretary, he was asked about the sweetheart deal that he gave Epstein. And he reportedly responded he had been told to back off, that Epstein was above his pay grade. "I was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone." So yet we have another example of Jeffrey Epstein belonging possibly to an organization that's an intelligence organization. So Jeffrey Epstein, protected pedophile and blackmail artist. Jeffrey Epstein purportedly molested Annie Farmer in 1996. The Farmer sisters reported Epstein to the FBI in 1996 and were stonewalled. So the federal authorities, Jeffrey Epstein actually came to the federal authorities in 1996, and they just ignored the Farmer sisters. Had they not ignored the Farmer sisters, think of the scores of women now who were victims then, who wouldn't have been molested by Jeffrey Epstein. So over the course of 30 years, Jeffrey Epstein, I believe, trafficked underage girls for about 30 years. He and his cohorts molested scores and scores of underage girls, some reportedly as young as 11 or 12 with impunity. The mainstream media sticks with 14-year-olds, but there's been examples of women or girls that were molested at 13. Actually, one of the lawsuits that's been settled was, and the girl was had been 13 years old when Jeffrey Epstein molested her. And articles have come out and shown that Jeffrey Epstein. They were younger than, and there's a couple of articles that I'm aware of that said that the youngest victim was 11 or 12 years old. So the Justice Department had a list of 32 Epstein victims, which could have guaranteed Epstein a life sentence. But according to Alexander Acosta, intelligence intervened, and Epstein was given a sweetheart deal culminating in 13 months in county jail. So Alexander Acosta was told to lay off Jeffrey Epstein, that he belonged to intelligence. And what's really interesting here is the people that were behind Jeffrey Epstein were able to engineer his sweetheart deal in 2008. And that same shadowy network was able to allow Jeffrey Epstein to essentially traffic young women for almost 25 years after the Farmer sisters went to the FBI. So Epstein could not have blackmailed power brokers with impunity because such men typically have access to ruffians, murderers, and even organized crime. The only way Epstein could have blackmailed some of the most powerful men in the world and lived to tell the tale was if those power brokers were aware that Epstein had the backing of a very powerful network or organization that would protect him and seek retribution. And this is an important point. Jeffrey Epstein by himself could not have blackmailed some of the most powerful men in the world. There had to be an organization behind him that said to these people who were blackmailed, these men that were blackmailed, don't even think about trying to hurt Jeffrey Epstein or we'll take you down. And I'll give you an example of someone who is unbelievably generous to Jeffrey Epstein, who also has ties to organized crime. So Les Wexner, a blackmail mark. Les Wexner is the CEO of L Brands, which includes Victoria's Secret, Pink, Bath and Body Works, C.O. Bigelow, Abercrombie and Finch, and he has a net worth of $4.5 billion. Now, this is an article from the New York Times on July 27, 2019. It says that Epstein was introduced to Wexner in the mid to late 1980s. And Mr. Epstein started spending more and more time around Wexner, leaving longtime colleagues puzzled about why he was embracing this newcomer. So the people around Les Wexner were perplexed. Why is Les Wexner embracing Jeffrey Epstein like this? Now, the clearest sign of Mr. Wexner's nearly limitless comfort with Mr. Epstein came in July 1991. Mr. Wexner signed a 3-page legal document known as Power of Attorney that enabled Mr. Epstein to hire people, sign checks, buy and sell properties, and borrow money. So Les Wexner has not known Jeffrey Epstein for that long, and he hands the keys to his empire to Jeffrey Epstein in 1991. Jeffrey Epstein can do whatever he wants with Les Wexner's money. And here are some more, there's 2 articles about the New York Times that I've taken this information from. On July 6, 2020, Wexner wrote a letter to L Brand employees vowing that he was never aware of the illegal activity charged in Epstein's latest indictment. After Palm Beach police arrested Epstein for multiple counts of child abuse in 2006, Wexner ostensibly severed his connections 18 months after the fact. But despite their purported rupture in 2007, one of Wexner's charitable foundations received a $56 million infusion from a trust linked to Epstein in 2011. Wexner also claims that he discovered that Epstein had embezzled vast sums of money from him in 2007, but he never notified authorities. So Wexner is saying that basically Jeffrey Epstein trampled all over him, and their financial relationship was definitely active after Jeffrey Epstein had his sweetheart deal in 2008. And Les Wexner is also saying that Jeffrey Epstein ripped him off. So we're going to look at Les Wexner's ties to organized crime. Arthur Shapiro was the partner of an esteemed law firm, Schwartz, Shapiro, Kelman, Warren, which represented the limited, the retail empire of business potentate Les Wexner. And this is an excerpt from the article. Someone wanted to silence Columbus lawyer Arthur L. Shapiro. 2 bullets were fired point blank into his head as he pounded on the door of a Northwest Side condo on the morning of March 6, 1985. 25 years later, the slaying remains unsolved. So this is a high-flying attorney, and he's a partner in a law firm that works for, that does a lot of business with Les Wexner. And actually, Shapiro was the law firm's point man for dealing with Lex Wexner and L Brands. Now, here's a 1990 report on the Shapiro homicide. It's from the Columbus Police Department. And it's very, very telling. This report was so explosive on the death of Columbus attorney Arthur L. Shapiro that the police chief ordered it to be destroyed. And obviously it wasn't destroyed because I have a copy of it. But so here's this explosive homicide report from 1991, 6 years after Shapiro's death, that the police chief orders to be destroyed. So what is so explosive in this homicide report? Here's some excerpts from it. From the predicate facts presented, it appears that Lex Wexner had established contact with associates reputed to be organized crime figures, one of whom was a major investment partner, and another was using the limited headquarters as a mailing address. Francis J. Walsh, or Frank, is the owner and chief executive officer of Walsh Trucking Company out of New Jersey. Walsh Trucking has been a primary transporter for the limited in Columbus. In July 1984, Walsh was being investigated by the New York Organized Crime Task Force. Notices to this effect were addressed to Walsh at 1 Limited Parkway, to Wexner's headquarters. Thus, the concluding hypothesis is that Arthur Shapiro could have answered too many of these sorts of questions and might have been forced to answer them in his impending grand jury hearing. So this report goes on to implicate Les Wexner in Shapiro's homicide. So in the last slide, I talked about the police report demonstrating that that Les Wexner had ties with organized crime or the mafia. Now here's a Women's Wear Daily from June 25th, 1987. These are a couple of excerpts. Walsh had done in excess of 90% of the Limited's business. Court papers show that Walsh's revenues from the Limited totaled $73,600,000 in 1985. So Francis J. Walsh and Les Wexner were obviously very well acquainted with each other, because in 1 year, Les Wexner gave Walsh over $73 million. Now here's an article from the Bergen Record talking about Walsh's connections to the organized crime. It's from June 9th, 1996. Walsh, described as an associate of the Genovese crime family by federal investigators, also pleaded guilty to 2 counts of mail fraud for falsifying loan applications that netted him $3 million in bank loans. So with the last 2 slides, I've shown that the Limited used Walsh's services very prolifically, and that Walsh was in fact an organized crime figure. So Jeffrey Epstein, the cover-up continues. The federal government covered up Epstein's child trafficking for years, and he was also protected as a blackmailer. The American people must unequivocally demand that the Justice Department exact justice on Jeffrey Epstein's matrix of procurers and perpetrators, and also on the intelligence network or organization that protected him legally and also physically. If the Department of Justice is indifferent to victims in a proven trafficking case, then there is little hope for the vast majority of victims. If the perpetrators in the Epstein case are allowed to go scot-free, then all perpetrators are empowered. Thank you.
Hi. So I guess I'm going to ask you first. I'm looking at the camera too. I'm going to ask you. So I want you to tell me about your work first.
Okay. I would be happy to tell you. I am a psychologist, and what that really means right now for me day to day is mostly doing therapy. Most of it just like this, actually, virtually right now. So I get to have my dogs with me during the sessions, and I see people with all kinds of situations they're struggling with. But part of my work is focused on survivors of trauma, and specifically sexual trauma. So that's something that I feel lucky to be able to, to help people with. And certainly, I think that my work is helped by, some of the experience that I've had and some of the conversations that even, hearing from other women, other survivors, getting their perspectives. I think all that helps me in doing my work and kind of recognizing how many of the struggles we have are so similar.
Yes. So you you've had lots of clients who've had sexual abuse and sexual trauma, and you realize how widespread it is. And I think that's why this is important, is reaching a wider audience and letting them know that it's okay to talk about, and that these subjects that, yeah, I'm getting performance anxiety now. So I'm like, always forget my words. I'm like, oh.
I think you're exactly right. And I feel that in a way, being a therapist, so many people are sharing information with you that they haven't shared with others. And people come in thinking that this experience, that they've been through is strange, unusual, or shameful. And, I just know how many women have had these experiences. I mean, how many people, not just women. But I think while we kind of know that from the numbers, it's hard to connect with that sometimes about how common these experiences are. And so I hope that part of the work that Victims Refuse Silence can do is continuing to spread the message of that there's nothing to be ashamed of if you've had these experiences, and that lots of children and adults alike have struggled with these things.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I mean, that's how I was gonna segue into like, and how we connected and how all of us as survivor sisters connected because we all share the same trauma. We've all had the same experience by, um, experiencing and, um,
Can I ask you, like, we talked recently about coming up on the anniversary of getting to meet, and I'm
mhm.
curious, thinking about that day, like what that meant to you to connect with other women who had been through such similar experiences um, with Epstein and with that whole group of people.
I felt like we all kind of spoke the same language. We could all connect with each other because before, I hadn't talked about it with anyone before. Um, but now I could share my experience with someone who thoroughly understood it. Um, and it's like we could speak to each other without even using words, really. Like there was such a deep connection, and I, you know, feel so grateful for it. So what would be wonderful is if, victims refuse silence could offer that to other victims of, sexual abuse and sex trafficking. And that's what my hope is, that they could give that to victims that, no, I'm forgetting my words again. I always do that. I'm like, I have the sentence in my head, and then I'm like, oh, I draw a blank.
I think that's
It's also, that's like the ADHD too. But I want them to have that same experience that I have, that connecting with you and with the other survivor sisters, that they can maybe connect with other therapists and other people that have also had the same abuse and also the same trauma,
Mhm.
and know that they're not alone and they're not the only ones who've had that happen to them, because that's, you know, how most people that are predators get them and keep them isolated.
Mm. Oh yeah, no, I think you're so right. That sense of isolation is um, so destructive. You know, I felt yeah, I felt so moved, and I remember getting to stand by you, sit by you during the hearing, and how I don't know, yeah, just how comforting it was, your presence, and being with other women who just were emanating this kind of like understanding and support.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it would be really powerful to get to share resources, share information,
Mm-hmm.
so that people can connect with the kind of resources they need for their healing, whatever that might be.
Yes. I mean, it's so important to be able to talk to someone else about what happened. Because I always like say, I mean, this is kind of a cliche statement. It's not what's wrong with you, it's what happened to you.
Mm.
So,
I think that is so powerful. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a lot of work to be done. I mean, we know obviously that this is a really widespread issue, and I think that it's great that more people are talking about it, and there's more. I think more than ever before, people are learning from media and from conversations that are happening online
mm-hmm.
about how predators operate and what kind of things to be on the lookout for. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I think there's lots of work to be done in this area.
Yeah. Trying to think of what else. I mean, it'd be, um, forgetting my words again. So I'm used to being in, having talking points and being asked these questions. So just between you and me. Um,
You had a good point earlier. Tell me about, like, in terms of because I think one of the focuses here is on younger people and children.
mhm.
Um, you were talking about a gap that you've noticed in terms of services, mental health services for children.
Yeah, I mean, I have two kids, but I've also noticed there's a huge shortage in this country, at least, of child psychiatrists and child psychologists. And I think that is usually the first place that kids need to go to in order to get services. once they have been abused or in an unsafe situation. And considering how limited those resources are, I don't think very many people are aware of that. So I think maybe letting people know of this, that there is an issue with that, and that there is so few limited resources, and that even just getting help on that level, even medically, and it's difficult.
Yeah, and I think the obstacles are just greater for people with less resources, right? And so it's like, so important, yes, that we recognize that as a problem, so that there can be energy put into solving that issue, and that also maybe people can get some help in navigating our super complicated system, for finding providers and figuring out how to have have care paid for, and it is all so complicated.
Yeah. No, that's just one aspect of this. That's just the medical care, but also like finding a therapist and finding also other support groups. And yeah, this is a complicated issue.
Yeah. Which just means that I think any resources that people can put towards victims refuse silence, there's lots of good work to be done. And I know I've been so struck by the generosity of people since coming forward. People just taking the time to send messages of support, people asking how they can help, supporting different fundraisers connected to this. I think all of that, seeing people, reach out to support my sister Maria, who's had a lot of health struggles, that I certainly think are connected to like the stress of all of this that she's been through. Anyway, it's just been very touching to me to see people's generosity, and I know they want to do more to help with this issue. So I'm excited that Virginia is spearheading this, and other people have really joined in big ways to make this happen.
Yeah, no, thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Teresa, for doing this. And you could see the collective efforts from everyone just by I'm managing the GoFundMe for Maria, and you see everyone's voice and people wanting to help, and people are so touched by her story. And it's so heartwarming to see.
Yeah.
And so
to me. And thank you for doing everything you've done there.
It's no work at all. It's
I know that's not true, but I hope you know how much it's meant to us, because it's in a really hard time, that has been a source of so much light and hope for us.
You're gonna make me cry. Because it's really been no work. If anything, it's been joy. If anything, just because helping someone else brings joy to other people. Just because it's been so nice to connect with Maria, because we could connect not only on, with our own collective trauma, but also because of, the medical issues that, she's had. And just, there's a lot to be shared.
Yeah.
And it's been such a positive experience, even though it's it's a very hard situation too, but it's amazing to see the positivity that can, and the light that can come out of such a dark situation and out of such a dark place. I mean, collectively, from the abuse that we both endured from Epstein and Maxwell, from you, and also Maria's struggle with cancer. I mean, those are two, very, it's.
I love the way you said that, and I think that's what struck me about this whole last year, is that from such really difficult circumstances, and getting in meeting everyone when we did, that was just this. There's so much like pain and hurt there, but it just felt like the energy that came from that has brought so much light and some unexpected good things into my life and to Maria's life, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So really a wonderful thing to know that that's possible.
Yeah, it was life-changing, really. Because you're taking something and just bringing it to, something that's so dark, and just bringing it and just you're transforming it. It's like almost like a transcendence of sorts. You're knowing, and you're working with a whole different type of, energy. It's rising above all the pain and the suffering. And if you can send that message out there and make it like a global message, I think that's been, I think that would be good.
I think that's a really powerful thing to share. Yeah. Well, thank you for, connecting tonight and talking more about all this. And I'm excited. I'm really excited for where this is going to go. I know that there's a lot of big ideas and big plans, and I feel like good things lie ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, I'm so glad we got to be able to connect tonight. And I'm really looking forward to everything. And this is just the beginning, really. So.
Hi there again. This is Virginia Roberts Dufresne. You know me as the Epstein survivor who speaks out about the trauma he caused me and so many others, and Ghislaine Maxwell and the other co-conspirators who have yet to be taken down. I think we're doing a really good job getting there. The Justice Department is finally doing their job. We have to keep the pressure on. If we don't, then we are just subjecting our children's future into what I went through, and we can't let that happen. I want to do a kind of a special video with you guys and introduce you to the person other than my children and my dog who matters most to me. This is Robert Dufresne. This is my husband. We've been together for nearly 18 years in October. We met in Thailand, and he was the first person who told me what I was going through was not okay. It was bad. Everyone in my life at that time was like, what are you complaining about? You're flying around in jets and you're making money, and nobody actually understood the fullness of the abuse that I was being endured to. And when I told this guy over here, he looked at me and he said, I can't believe it. It's stranger than fiction. And you don't have to go back to that. He got on his knees and he asked me to be his wife. So 10 days later we were married in Doiset Temple, and for 18 years he's been my best friend, my lover, my husband, and the person who's always got my back. So I'll let you hear a little bit from Robbie about our experience in Thailand and how we got to where we are today.
Well, as she said, we married within 10 days in Doiset Temple in Chiang Mai. And quickly soon after that, I got to experience the trauma she went through. And even years after that, the nightmares, the tribulation that she had to fight just live a normal life. I think once a person has been victimized in any way, they suffer, and until their voices are heard and until they can find peace, I think it's a never-ending circle. And I think
The cycle's got to stop. That's what we're doing here. That's what Victims of Youth Silence is about, is stopping that cycle. You can go from victim to survivor and from survivor to thriver. And that's the transition that we want to see happen in the world, instead of this cycle of abuse where you either become a victim and a shell and you self-harm, you might turn to drugs, you might turn to alcohol, you might turn to prostitution because you think that's all you're worth, or you might commit suicide. And then the other side of it is sometimes the abused becomes the abuser. These cycles need to stop. Sorry?
cycles as well as people, but when you actually meet someone who's been abused, you've actually got to not go down to their level, but you've really got to understand the fact that this person's been traumatized and they need support. And I'm not saying that you have to be the prince in shining armor. It's about just hearing them, talking to them, and speaking out. You've got to speak out. You can't just protect these people. And if those people that you go to can't help you, go to another person. You can't let the abuser get away. Because we've all got to stand together. That's what I think. I think we've got to stand together, and I think we've got to make it apparent that we won't stand for this any longer.
Sorry, there's a chopper going past. 1 second. I think it's heading that way, but no, you're absolutely right. Speaking out, it took me a long time. It took me till I had kids to realize that I can't let them grow up in this world.
And even when you did, what did you do? You got shamed, you got put down,
Harassed, followed,
death threats.
I've had lights shining in my windows at night to the point where I've had to hide my children. I've had pictures of my children thrown on the table during depositions. I've had the worst of the worst. And I think by just standing in your concrete boots and saying, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying right here. You cannot bully me into silence. We need to be strong. I know it's so hard, guys. I really, really do. I understand it. But stand up. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for your children. Stand up for other people's children. That's the only way that we're going to stop this cycle. The new movement, and I thank God for the Me Too movement. Thank you to all of the victims and survivors of the Me Too movement who stood up and said, wait a second, this is so wrong. The new movement has now got to be children. We've got to think about our children. Hashtag save the children. Hashtag kids too.
There's not a time that if I have to allow my children to walk out, based upon the threats and also the co-conspirators that have been in your life, there's not a time where my kids want to go down the corner store that is that fear. You know what I mean? It's just like, we've got to band together. We've got to say enough's enough.
Enough is enough. It's been enough for the last 100 years. I mean, why have we accepted it? Why? It's the corruption. It's the man behind the curtain is what I like to call it. And we need to expose that man, and that man's got to go away, because our children matter more than anything in the world.
We need the court systems to man up. Stop giving these guys 4 years, 5 years on a great plea deal. We need to go do their time. They need to know that if you want to hurt a child, there's no middle ground. You're going away for life. You want to hit a child, you're going in for life.
Harsher penalties. It's an eye for an eye thing. So I kind of compare it to murder, right? Now, you might not, because you might have been a person who's never been abused before, but I have. And I have parts of me that I'll never get back. So in my experience, they've taken a part of my soul They've murdered a part of my soul that I'll never get back.
Till this day.
Till this day, until the day I die, I will carry these scars. I fight very hard. I might look hard on the outside, but on the inside, I'm a marshmallow. That's my husband. But it's so important to speak out. I think that's what we're trying to get across to
We've got to band together.
the women and the men and the teenagers out there. We need to educate you. You need to know space. You need to know physical space. You need to know what to do in a situation. When somebody offers you something, if it's too good to be true, then it probably is. So don't take it. We need to educate.
As well. Parents need to be educated.
Yes, parents need to be educated. Children need to
School
be educated.
systems.
Yeah.
There's got to be a movement that is so powerful. There's not even a chance for segregation. And that's why I believe in this new movement. The kids,
Kids too.
I believe in that so much because it all stems from the child. If the child is healthy, the child lives a good life. I mean, I'm not talking about riches. I'm just talking about a safe life.
Prevention is the best medicine, and we, by starting this movement, are starting a prevention movement. We don't want to see our next generation a hurt generation, because then, like I said, the cycle continues. I really appreciate everybody who has sent me letters and tweets and Instagrams. Thank
But
you so
also-
much for your support.
Also, sorry if she can't get back to you on everyone. She's been very ill for the last while. So if she hasn't got back to anyone,
Don't take it, it's personal. I only have two hands and one brain that's not fully functioning at the moment.
yes, it is. Okay. Yes, it is.
And I'm doing my very best, but my love is for all of you. It really is. I have a deep, deep connection to everybody who sends me their love, and I appreciate it. My husband appreciates it.
Like I say
My
on
kids
Twitter,
appreciate it.
like I say on Twitter, mate, the support that she's been getting over these last 5 years has been incredible. I'm not a online kind of a person, but I see what my wife, the support that she gets, is a beautiful thing. To see so many people out there wanting the same change, and I think that's the key word. We want the same change. And if we can just band together, stand up, and unite.
Yeah.
I mean, these people work for us. These government officials, these boards, they work for us. So if we can just band together, we tell them what we want. Not the other way around, guys. We've got to band together.
Strength in numbers.
That's right.
And we outnumber them. We forgot that a long time ago. I don't know how or why. Maybe we've been, dumbed down by TV and blah, 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 blah. But right now we need to all focus on the fact that they work for us. They owe us the rights to be able to have a
Be safe.
have a safe life. Our children should have a safe life, and to know that if something happens to us, that the perpetrator is going to be held accountable.
Accountability for our actions. We get taught this from children to primary school to high school. I know you guys in America call it something different.
That's okay.
But that word accountable, it's been used a lot lately, and I think we can't lose the meaning of it. Since we're children, we're accountable for our actions.
And I want to leave you with one last thing. Love heals everything. I really mean that. Love yourself. Love yourself first.
And trust.
Trust that there are others out there that will believe you and hear you and listen to you and love you. You deserve love.
Yeah.
And
You do.
thank you. Thank you for listening to me and Robbie, and I hope you enjoy the fundraiser day. Donate. We are trying to build our first health and wellness center. There's some pretty cool items up for grabs in the fundraiser, so $5 a ticket, and you might end up with something pretty cool. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this, and there's more to go, so skip to the next one. All the best.
Hey everybody, my name is Sky Roberts. I am the little brother of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. This is my wife Amanda Roberts.
Hello, everybody.
And first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to not only support my sister, but to support all of the survivors out there, to support this movement, this beautiful movement. And just to spend a few minutes talking about what it means to us. I think what it's how, or even how it's impacted our life as a whole, and how we can inspire change moving forward. You know, and for me, I think, you know, first off, growing up, you know, my sister was my hero. She was my superhero. So everybody has superheroes, right? They got Iron Man and Spider-Man. She was my superhero growing up, and I look at her now, you know, I didn't really understand what was going on as a kid, and I look at her now and I'm just so inspired, you know, what she's done. And truthfully, she's still my superhero today. She'll attest to it. I call her my superhero all the time. She's still my superhero, you know, the way that she's been able to inspire me, the way that she's inspired many of you, and the way that she's continuing to do it, right? I mean, she hasn't backed down. She's not backing down. She is moving forward. She's letting her voice and so many of our voices be heard. I mean, even through her in a lot of ways. And that is impactful. That is so impactful to a lot of people out there and to myself. And so I just want her to know, and she already knows this, but how proud of her we are, of what she's doing, of what so many other survivors are doing. And I think that's why this movement is so important. I think it's why it's so important to talk about it, and why we've come forward, you know, to support her and to support the cause. The hashtag Kids2 movement, the hashtag Save the Children movement. It's much bigger than just the hashtag. It's important to really embrace what that actually means. And so I think we just want to spend a few minutes talking about that. And so for me, it's really about how do we talk about that, and how do we inspire change now. You know, we can talk a little bit about how we can do that in the future, but how do we inspire that change right now? And so, you know, you really think about it. What does it boil down to, right? It boils down to the laws out there. It boils down to the money and the power and the systems, and so we can spend a lot of time going over laws and stuff, and truthfully, I don't think it's necessary to just go into the laws itself, but I think this is much bigger. It's such a big systemic issue as a whole, you know?
Yep.
And I think that's something we need to talk about. It's not just about the laws itself. And if you look at it, let's be real for a second. You know, this starts at the top and works its way down. I think a really good example of that is the whole Epstein thing in Florida,
Yes.
right?
Where he should have, I mean, it should have been a closed case. I mean, there was plenty of evidence against him. We had all of it down pat, and he went away with a slap on his wrist. Why? Why does that keep happening?
Yeah.
And it all boils down to this backhandling system where these backroots transactions happen because you have money, or because you have status, because you have connections. That's a problem.
Yeah.
We have a serious problem. And how do we attack that? And I think the biggest thing is, while we may not all have gone to law school, there are people who have, who know the laws, who know the change. And if we can encourage them as a community and fight together as a community of people who have had enough of these backhandling systems, you know, of this victim shaming, this culture in the society where, you know, we don't believe people when they come out because this person is of esteem. How do we change that?
Yeah, well, I think it's about having one voice, you know? It's like, if we can all come together collectively and have a voice together, I think it's gonna make it that's what's gonna impact this, ultimately. It's not just about one person or this person or that person. Let's be real, this has already been started. This isn't something that we have to get the ball rolling. The ball is rolling. It's about encouraging ourselves to continue to get that ball much bigger. How do you get it bigger? You get more voices. How do you get more voices? We inspire change, right? And I think if you inspire change, you're gonna get that into such a point where it cannot be ignored anymore. It cannot be ignored. And I mean,
It's imperative that we act now because people are so ready for a change.
they are.
They're starting to see things that they didn't see before, and they're more aware and they want change. And we have to continue this traction that we have right now by supporting movements like this, by supporting groups, Victims Refuse Silence, our community of people who want to help survivors and give them an outlet to speak where they're heard and give them the support that they need. And so it's so important to keep supporting these type of avenues and these type of platforms.
Well, and look at it this way. I mean, you know, and not to divert from our initial conversation, but there's so many things out there that are still wrong. I mean, the laws that we have out there are outdated. I mean, there's still states that have these laws out there that allow children to get married at young ages. You know, I mean, there's still things that are out there that are so wrong and outdated that we need to change. And it starts with having that voice. It starts with what my sister and so many of these survivors have already done. It's allowing people like myself, who are family members of them, my sister, who are friends, who are normal people out there that just want to get involved, who are celebrities, who are etc., to be able to get involved in this and to actually voice their concern. Because once it becomes so big, like I said before, it can no longer be ignored. Right? There's so much systemic issues there. And the thing that I would challenge all of us to do is look at the movements going on around the world right now. There's many of them, right? There's so many problems that have come up recently that because of the voice that has been expressed, that it's now become so big it can no longer be just pushed to the side. I challenge us to do the same thing. I challenge us as people to do the same thing because people are listening. They are listening right now, and by having this opportunity, there's a chance we may not get it again, and I think it's important that we absolutely take hold of it right now. And so this means so much to us, obviously, because we are very directly tied to it. You know, my sister obviously having the experiences she did. And again, we are very proud of her for coming forward and really not backing down. But it's time for us not to back down either.
Yes.
Because they've been able to quiet a lot of people, and it's time not to be quieted any longer. So how do we inspire change right now? We don't be quiet. We hashtag the kids too. We hashtag save the children. We blast anybody and everybody we can to make sure that they understand that this is not little anymore. This is a big deal, not just to us and not just for us. It's for our friends, it's for our family members, it's for our children, it's for our future to be able to continue to move forward. And so I think the other part of it too is like prevention. Like, let's just say we do inspire this change, and when we do inspire this change, really, right? How do we make it so that 5, 10, 15, 20, X amount of years, this isn't something that just sticks now, it's something that sticks later, you know?
Well, I think from a perspective as a mother, you know, over the years I've gotten so close to Virginia that she's not my sister-in-law, she's my sister. And blood couldn't make us any closer. And as a mother, you know, her story really resonates with me because it's just created so much awareness. Everywhere that I go with my children, am I aware of my surroundings? You know, am I aware of who's around me and who are my children interacting with? And what are the other children in that area doing and who are they interacting with?
And do they know what's going on?
Do they know
Right.
if they're approached, how would they handle a situation like that? Are they aware? You know, and prevention, I think, starts at home. You know, how do we have these conversations with our children that are appropriate, that are not scaring them, but make them aware. And that's a big thing that Virginia and I, mulled over as parents. And, she was really inspired, and she inspired me to collaborate with her on children's books that are actually aimed at prevention, that help parents have these conversations at home in an easy way, in a way that doesn't scare them, in a way that can teach them things to do if they're approached.
Yep.
The awareness of their bodies, so that if something happens, we can trust their judgment, because they have that instinct, but they may not know how to explain it. And so it's important that we can have these conversations at home. And I'm so proud as a mom, as the culture in our world, I feel like, is changing. We're so much more aware of what's actually going on and how it's affecting us.
Yep.
And it's so important that we grab holds of this in this moment.
Yeah, and let's not be scared to broach the subject. I mean,
Right.
again, we've been quieted for a long time, and I
Right.
feel like this isn't something that's just happened recently. Let's be real. This is something that's happened for years
Yes.
and years,
Yes.
and they've been able to get away with it.
Right.
And it's time to allow us to be able to voice our concerns, to voice our opinions, to help other victims that this has happened to come forward and
Yes.
voice their experiences, and to feel inspired by it, to get behind it. This isn't just about one or two or three or four. This is about everybody collectively coming together and creating change and creating inspiration. And so, like you said, we can't be afraid to broach the subject. Can't be afraid to have these conversations with our kids. This is real, right? This is real. This is happening. This is not something that is just yesterday. This is something happening right now
Right.
that we have to talk about. And so,
I think it's our moral obligation as a community of people who love and care for each other, want the best for our children, to act now, to speak up now, to not be silent anymore, to take hold of this opportunity and give our children the voices. We need to be the voices for our children, for our future children and their future children. So we challenge everyone tonight to support Kids Too.
yeah, #KidsToo, #SaveTheChildren. Don't be quiet anymore. Don't be scared. There's so many of us out there that are willing to back you in so many ways. We have each other's backs. So tonight we create a movement. Not only do we create a movement because it's already been created, we support a movement, and we honestly voice a movement. So #KidsToo, #SaveTheChildren. Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to just speak for a few minutes, to support this beautiful cause, to support so many beautiful women, men, children, everybody out there. To support my sister. I love you so much, Jenna. I love you. We all love you. Thank you for being a voice. Again, thank you to all the survivors out there with the voice, and we love you guys. We love you all.
We're so
And
proud.
we're proud of you. #KidsToo, #SaveTheChildren. Let's do this, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Okay, recording.
Hi, this is Virginia Roberts Giuffre. I'm CEO of Victims Refuse Silence, and I'm here with my good friend.
Hello, I'm Michelle. I am on the board of advisors of Victims of Silence, and we would like to talk to you guys today about anything and everything.
That's it. We are open. So first off, I want to explain how Michelle and I met. We have a very cool story. So I wasn't at the meeting when Epstein was arraigned. Michelle was lucky enough. Michelle, tell us a little bit about that day. I just love visually picturing that day and what you saw.
Okay, yeah, it was actually a very terrifying experience for me because I hadn't seen Jeffrey Epstein since the very first time he abused me. And so he walked into the courtroom. He was in the jumpsuit. He had the handcuffs on him. And, you know, he looked like he was, for once in his life, being held accountable for his actions. And I started crying immediately as soon as I saw him enter into the room. It was actually a relief when the judge was talking to us. He was talking about how these women, they're not prostitutes, so you need to stop calling them prostitutes. These women were children when this happened, and you need
And
to.
you can't be a child and a prostitute at the same time. I know, it's just ridiculous. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it was a really nice feeling for once. Out of the 14 years that this has been going on, somebody has looked at us in the face and said what he did was wrong and it's not going to happen again. You know, like that's the feeling that I got from that day. So it was an amazing feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I have had the horrible experience of having to be face to face with one of my abusers, and it's not an easy thing. I mean, as much as you're holding them accountable, just to see them again is like flashbacks after flashbacks after flashbacks. And, you know, it's good knowing that they're being held accountable, but at the same token, what they did to us, the scars don't go away. They never do. The flashbacks never go away. It's not an easy thing to have to go through. So the people out there who are listening and have never been abused, it's very hard to explain. You know, a lot of people say, just move on and move forward. And unfortunately, here I am 37, and I was abused at the age of 16 till 19 with Epstein, and the visions are as if they happened yesterday. So I completely understand why you kind of broke down in court. I did the same when I was faced with another one of my abusers. So me and Michelle, we met through media. We did a lot of media, as you know, everybody out there knows. It was kind of like a media frenzy when Epstein killed himself or didn't kill himself. And we started doing a lot of really good media stuff. Like, I love the fact that we have a picture of us on that staircase in New York, all of us together, united in a sisterhood. And Michelle and I just clicked. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment, wasn't it? It was really fun too. And we clicked, and we had some champagne upstairs, and we just sat around this round table and we just spoke about like what needs to happen in the world. Here we are, you know, Jeffrey got first arraigned in 2007. Here we are in 2020, 13 years later, and the world's still in the same place. You know, I think we are getting into a better, since the Me Too movement, we are getting into a better open space where people are starting to listen and think about survivors, and that this is happening under our noses as it goes right now. Unfortunately, guys, I want you to just do this for me. Close your eyes next time you're in a restaurant, open your eyes back up, and 1 in 4 of those people in the restaurant have been abused. That's the stats that we're looking at. And, you know, over 800,000 children in America alone go missing each year. Where are they going? Some of these children aren't even designed with birth certificates. So it's easy to put them underground and sell them, use them, do whatever they want with them. And it's times have got to change. That's Victims Refuse to Silence's mission, is times have got to change. We've got to start a big movement. Me Too served its purpose. We are forever grateful for it. It's time for us to do Kids Too, because that's our generation.
Yeah, it really does. I think like it starts with our children and educating the parents to protect those children for the future because everybody says it all the time. Kids are our future generation. And if we're not doing our part right now to protect them right now and to guide them through the way of life, they could end up just like we were, kids, um, being brought down the wrong path, going down a dark, scary road when they feel like they don't have any choices of what's in front of them. Or my biggest fear with my son is him not knowing the difference between a good choice and a bad choice, or listening to adults is the thing, because Jeffrey Epstein was the adult in the situation, and we just went along with what he said. So being able to know like the signs and the warnings that come along with the room that you're in or the situation that is in front of you, being aware of how to handle it and how to have an escape plan. Like, okay, what do I do first? Do I say no? How do I get out? And how do I move forward? Those are all things that our kids need to be well equipped with right now.
Setting boundaries is a huge thing for me. For my children, what I tell them is you need to have your own personal space. Even adults, we need to have our own personal space, right? Someone comes up to your face, that's putting yourself in danger. Our children don't know that. You know, they're in the playground, they're in each other's faces all the time. Will they make the connection when an adult's in their face? We need to let our children know safe spaces. Not everybody out there is good. We need to, unfortunately, bring them up in a world where they know that, you know, it's a beautiful place to live in, but not all people are good. And my determination with my children has been, I've been open with them the entire time. When they were little, it was mommy's fighting the bad guys. Now that they're in their teens, they are very well equipped to know what's right, what's wrong, and how to defend themselves. I think that's just some of the most important things that we need to do for our children. But then there's this whole other sector of the voiceless children, the ones that are being abused, the ones that don't have anybody looking out for them. That's where we come in. That's where any adult in the world comes in. You see signs, you say something. You know, the children out there, it's really sad. I have a Twitter feed where I get direct messages, and every single day I'm getting direct messages from people telling me that they were abused as a child. It generally starts at home or from somebody close, and nobody's recognizing the, you know, the notifications of what's happening, like who's out there, what do they do. My uncle, my auntie, my sister, my brother, my cousin, my dad, my mom, they need to know what's right and what's wrong. What are cuddles, what aren't cuddles, what are kisses, what are not kisses, what does personal boundary look like. So yeah, we really want to educate, you know, because the aftermath, prevention is much better. The aftermath of it is us. And not that we're bad people, but we've been through things that we can't ever undo and ever unsee and never unfeel. And prevention's the best strategy. So education all the way. And being really good friends with Michelle and having her on board, I don't know, God puts people in your life for reasons, and I truly am thankful to have this girl on my side.
Well, I am also thankful because, you know, the way I see you is you are the one that had that key piece of information. You were on the inside, and, you know, based off of what I had was more like I needed to have documents and certain things in line in order to like prove my truth. But you were living in it and it was like a daily life for you. And so when I look at you, I'm like, my God, she is like this like tiger lioness strength within me.
Oh, I want to rip the throats out of somebody. Sorry, I probably shouldn't say that in public space. But yeah, no, I truly believe that we do not have harsh enough penalties for sex abusers.
Wow.
They get slaps on the wrist. Look at Jeffrey Epstein, for example. It took from 2007 till 2019 for him to finally get held accountable. Ghislaine Maxwell, she's just been arrested. Yay! She's the Wicked Witch of the West. We are all so grateful for that. Court is July 12th next year. Everybody pay attention and let's make sure that that woman stays behind bars for the rest of her life. You go through the affidavits and she ruined hundreds of little girls' lives. And by the way, this is not just a woman issue. This is not just a girl issue. This is a man and a boy issue as well. So when I speak about abuse, I speak on all genders.
Everybody.
That's right, for everybody. I'm a humanist. Michelle's a humanist. We stick up for those who don't have their voices. And through our charity, you'll be able to find buttons on there to send us emails. Obviously, we are one person with two hands, so we will do our very best to get back to you. But please jump online, have a look, enjoy yourself around there.
And if it is an emergency, let's be clear, and you can't wait on our messages back. I think you need to call a local authority or call someone somewhere to let them know, because I don't want you waiting on a message reply back to tell you how to come out of a cave,
That's right.
Like
The messages for us is more for like, you've been through it already, you've gotten out of it. If you are in an emergency right now, you need to call 911, 000, depending on whatever country you're living in, you need to call the authorities immediately. I know the authorities have failed us time and time and time again, but times are changing. And I think it's time that we show the authorities that we don't work for them, they work for us. Somewhere along the line, we forgot that. And we need to pursue justice. Don't stop with one call. Don't stop with two calls. You call until your child or yourself is protected. And if that doesn't work, then you need to call lawyers, hospitals, doctors, teachers, people who will listen to you. We can't physically save you. We can guide you to places. Let's say if you have been abused already and that abuser is out of your life and you live in Texas, we can give you the tools to find the people in Texas. So the lawyers, the divisions of authorities, we can do that kind of stuff for you, but we can't save you from someone who's abusing you right now. You have to be strong enough to do that, and you can be, and you will be. You just got to know that you've got support. We support you, we believe you, and we will be there for you.
Yes, and if something like that is happening, just remember that the one person that matters the most is yourself, and remember that it's the way that people treat you, and it's the way that you need to learn how to treat yourself in order to get you out of that situation. To start with, maybe you might not realize it's as toxic as it really is, but take a look at what's happening. Take a look at the reactions to the way that you might say something, or if they're just using you for sex. I mean, it can happen anywhere. I mean, it can happen in high school, like with the boys or the girls of, the football team, or, so it can happen anywhere. And it's
And
not
to anyone.
yeah, it's not just people that don't have a family or a home. It's people that are being picked up at music festivals, people that are in school, people that are just everywhere. It's all over the world right now, and I think that not a lot of people are aware of it. And actually, somebody that was in an organization had told me that
Yeah.
nobody has even believed them up until now. Like, most people think like, oh, that can't be happening, but no, it really is. It's serious, and it's a huge ordeal. I've seen something where they say like the real, the pandemic is like sex trafficking. Let's do something about it. People are dying, are being enslaved. I mean, all kinds of things. So we need to do our part.
And it's just not Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, that's one sex trafficking pyramid. This is happening every day in every country underneath all of our noses. Stay tuned on this. You will hear from people in Spain. You will hear from the Aboriginals in Australia. You will hear from people all over America. We are all trying to join forces, and we need as many people on board so we can protect our children of the future. That's all we ask from you. Also, there's a raffle. Buy a ticket. There's some pretty cool stuff up for grabs. I'll leave that to you to choose, but I think I want to leave you guys with the notion that Victims Refuse Silence is a place where you're safe, a place where people will listen. We're starting a forum where survivors can talk to survivors, survivors can talk to us, they can talk to each other, they can be in a place where we can help each other, and I think that's really important, because you can go to a shrink, and trust me, I go to a shrink, and you can tell them what you've been through, but it's not until you meet somebody that has been through a similar ordeal that they kind of understand it more. They understand the scars, they understand why sometimes you might just break down for no reason at all. And people might see it as no reason at all, but in our hearts, there's a big reason. So feel safe to come onto our website, feel around, look around, navigate yourself way through it, and please be a part of it. I mean, the goal right now is to create our first health and well-being center, which will offer a lot of holistic health options, so ways to deal with what we've been through. We don't have to be the victim any longer. We can be the survivor, hence the butterfly metamorphosis that I use on my website. We don't have to self-harm anymore. We don't have to push ourselves away from people because people only hurt. There is good in the world. There's good and there's bad. Through our charity, I hope you find the good, and the good finds you. And when we build our first health and wellness center, we want to teach people how to breathe through anxiety attacks, meditate, yoga, just speak with each other. Hugs are great. I'm a big giant hugger. Michelle's a hugger. Yes. And yeah, let's just take care of each other, treat each other as we would want to be treated. And I think if we all follow that simple rule, the world wouldn't be that bad of a place.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, to add to that, even if people have suggestions as to what they think might be helpful. I mean, we're all ears and we're here to listen, and we want to know what you guys need, because that's ultimately what we're doing this for. We're trying to help people. And so if the people help us, that'll give us a sense of what it is you're looking for. Like, how can we help? I know that you could go on like a drug binge. You know, you could become a sex addict. These are all possible streams as to which direction you could go in. So tell us what we can
And
do.
no judgment.
No.
Yeah, and no judgment. Me too. I know. And there's no shame in it, because this happened to us, right? We were put down a very dark path. That's not our shame to carry anymore. So I've turned to drugs. I've run away. I've hit the streets. You know, when things get tough for me, I still get that fight and flight mode. But that's okay, because I can talk to my survivor sisters and I can tell them this is how I'm feeling. Oh, and I can talk to my little buddy here. She's my service dog. She wants to say hello.
Hello.
This is my little buddy. I suggest everybody get a French bulldog, because they just they love so much. But in all seriousness, there's so many ways to help your circumstances out, and we're here to help point you in that direction. We want to be your friends, and there's never enough.
Exactly. And we're all in this society together. It's a giant world, and we all connect in some way or another. It's like I live in a small town and everybody knows everybody, but ultimately the entire world knows everyone in the entire world, like through one person to another. So word of mouth, goes a long way. So
Absolutely.
we have to lean
And
on
if you've enjoyed this meeting, please pass it on. Sharing is caring. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and Michelle is open for invitations if you'd like to see her come speak at your school or any speaking conventions. She will have a button underneath her name that you can hit invite. And she is a busy woman. She is a mother, so give her a break, but she's a beautiful soul, and all she wants to do is help. So
like to love.
thank you so much. Like to love. That's right. So thank you for being a part of the video, and yeah, let's see where this goes. August 22nd, children lives matter. Save the children, kids too. That's our new movement.
Isn't it from 9 to 9?
9 to 9. So there's going to be lots of videos to check out. I hope you check out this one, because Michelle's a pretty awesome chick. She's actually really fun to drink with too. So I don't want to say too much more to that, but we enjoy ourselves.
We're human,
Yeah.
so we still
Well, no, we should tell them. We went to the Women's Media Awards together. We wore ball gowns.
we
felt like
stepped up
princesses
on the
for the
red
day.
carpet.
We did. We stepped on the red carpet together, and I tell you what, it was open bar, but it was so much fun. We just,
It was a fairy tale come to life.
It
I
was.
never, but we got to stay out past midnight, and we didn't lose any glass slippers. Well, I think you might have lost a shoe at some point.
I lost a shoe, and my dress was never in, like, after stepping in the New York, the dirty, what are those called? Like, the sewers were filled up, and I stepped, the dress is gone, but that's okay. We had a wonderful night.
But what we're getting at with that story was the fairy tale behind it was we went to an award ceremony with Julie Brown, the journalist that broke up in the Epstein story. And
Whoop, whoop, Julie.
hey. And so there were there were so many powerful and motivating women in the room. I was blown out the water when Julie Brown announced that 2 of the victims were in the room, and the entire room stood up and was praising us for speaking just a story about something so little that we think that, oh, if this is what happened to me. But people were like standing ovation because we used our voices to make a difference. And I was in awe. I was like, I can't believe that this is happening.
Same. We were both crying. Our mascara was coming down like happy tears. Like, wow, people really took notice of us, because for so long, nobody really knew. We just had this dirty, dark secret. And that's the whole point of it. This is not our dirty, dark secret to carry. It's Ghislaine Maxwell's dirty, dark secret. It's Jeffrey Epstein's. It's John Luke Brunel's. It's Sarah Kellen. I think of her new last name. Kelly Bavino, Eva Anderson, Dubin. Like, there's a lot of people that need to keep going down, and we're not stopping until everybody's going away to jail where they belong. No.
We are these girls in this Survivor Sisters pack that we have going on. We are like bloodhounds, and we're going out tracking and tracing every which direction, communicating with each other. This is what's happening here, you know, and that's what this is about. Victims Refuse Silence is we want to include the whole rest of the world on all the investigations that we're finding. Some of these survivors have become investigators for the case, you know, trying to work with FBI, you know.
Thank you, Marika.
Right. You know, and all these women, they have just picked themselves up, and they're just so powerful and motivating, and the media is giving us a voice, but now we are giving ourselves that voice with this website organization, to be able to go and, you know, just take them all down. That's the goal here. We, one at a time, or maybe 15 or 20,000 at a time, we're going to do it.
That'd be great. That would be great. But start somewhere, you know. And I think we've created a ripple effect, or the butterfly effect, you know. And our wings are spreading. Oh, I'm sorry. My dog is protecting me from the ocean. I want to end this by saying thank you for listening, and you're not alone out there if you are being abused. Yes, we have all the love in the world for you, and yeah, it was great catching up with you again, Michelle. We'll talk in the next few days, but yeah, August 22nd, be a part of it, be a part of the change we need to see in the world, and God bless you all, and thank you for being a part of that.
And thank you for listening. And thank you for coming out and telling us everything that we need to know. I mean, just thank you for being a part of what we want the whole rest of the world.
Hugs all around.
All right.
All right.
Guys, y'all.
Adios.
Good night.
Good night.
Let me.
Hi everyone, my name is Eliza, and I'm a survivor advocate for those affected by human trafficking. I'm also a survivor of human trafficking, and it is an honor and a privilege to get the opportunity to speak to you today about survivor aftercare and a couple other topics. Thank you so much to Victims Refuse Silence for asking me to participate in this today. It's an honor and a privilege. I love y'all. Y'all are my muse. You are inspiring me every day. Thank you so much. I am such a believer in what Victims Refuse Silence has in their future. There is nothing more powerful than brave survivors stepping up and having the opportunity to work one-on-one with other survivors and say, yeah, me too. You are not alone, and I believe you. Those are some of the most powerful moments that I've had the opportunity to experience on both sides. So I am a firm believer in survivor leaders. It is so important. Now, that being said, there is a space for everyone in the survivor movement, and hopefully after watching this video, you will have a better idea of how to get involved. So first and foremost, everybody knows donations are so important, and that goes to everything. That goes to keeping the lights on, that goes to promotion material, that goes to internet exposure, exposure, that goes to everything. And although we have a lot of volunteers that are really hands-on, we need money as well, right? Because we cannot best serve survivors without being able to meet survivors where they're at. And part of meeting survivors where they're at is being places where survivors are going to be. And a lot of times that's the internet or other festivals or things like that. How could we possibly fund being there, pay for the tent at the festival, to pass out promotional material, to pass out the hotline information and things like that without a little bit of funding? So if you have a little extra cash laying around, definitely shoot it off to Victims Refuse Silence. I actually personally am donating today. It's something I believe so much in, and I really, really want to see these projects. Secretly, I kind of know a little bit more than the average bear about what Victims Refuse Silence has coming up, and that's all I'm going to say. I don't want to spill too much tea, but I know what's coming up. We need some cash, but we're going to use it for something good. So how about that? I'll leave it there, okay? So, or maybe I should just say it. Oh, Teresa, I hope you don't kill me for this video. There's a healing center on the way. I call it a safe house healing center, and we need a lot of cash to make that happen, honestly. Victims Refuse Silence needs a lot of cash to make that happen. Those things just don't happen lightly, and so please just think about donating some cash. Anyway, if you do not have the opportunity in this wild year to donate a couple bucks to Victims Refuse Silence, I'm gonna give you a couple other ways to get involved. I always tell folks, when you first think about getting involved in the survivor space, I think a lot of people are so nervous and scared to get involved because they have no idea what they're going to encounter and they have no idea what to do or say. The good news is you don't have to work directly with survivors to help out in the movement. I always let folks know, write down your gifts, write down what comes to you naturally, write down what you do for work, and then use those gifts and your skill set to help out the survivor space. So what that looks like is, if you're a yoga teacher, think about getting trained to work with survivors and then hold a yoga class for survivors. If you are a carpenter, think about helping out build a survivor safe house, or think about helping a survivor with their roof or something around their own house. If you do taxes, think about helping an organization with their taxes, or a survivor as well. If you do tech, a lot of organizations don't have a tech team. So we need help in all those ways. I always let people know, like, hey, if you make soap, send a box of soap. Send a box of handmade soap for survivors to a local safe house. So I regularly on my Twitter post a list of over 2,000 local organizations, both in the United States and internationally. And what you can do on that list is just click on it, zoom in, and really see what organizations are going on in your area. If there aren't organizations in your area, I'd recommend maybe you start one. Think about getting involved in that way. Also, I always let people know that there is a directory on the Polaris Project website. Polaris Project runs our national human trafficking hotline, and there is always a reference directory on their website. And a lot of folks ask me, like, how do I know which organizations are the real deal, which organizations I should get involved with? Well, you're going to have to research, and you could just, with a simple Google search, you can look up the organizations, see what they're doing, not only on their website, but see what other websites are saying about them, see what awards they've won and exactly what they've done. Are they operating with transparency, or is there something that seems a little off? I always say, if you get a funny feeling about an organization, or if you don't think that they align with your values, you could just keep it pushing. There's a lot of other ways to get involved. Also, if you don't want to leave the comfort of your own homes, and if you don't feel like you particularly have a special skill, you can always post on social media. That's one of my favorite things to do. I post the human trafficking hotline. I post the RAIN, National Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence hotlines, all the time. I do that in the hopes that maybe there will be a survivor out there that's struggling, and that maybe they'll get an opportunity to see that post. So those are some ways that you can get involved. Now, I let people know, to become a survivor advocate, I do think that folks should be trained, and in some states it's a little bit more of a requirement, and for some organizations it's more of a requirement. Under all circumstances, anyone that's working directly with survivors should have a background check. So those are some things. You know, survivors need rides. We need it all. That's what I tell people. We need it all. We need people that help us with fundraisers. We need toothbrushes, we need deodorant, we need it all. So if you cannot donate financially, please think about donating. You know, get together a bag of clothes. It doesn't matter what season. You know, winter's going to be coming up right here in the Midwest. We're going to need coats. We're going to need sweaters. We need all of it. I've had a lot of folks donate handmade masks. And that's been really amazing this year, is a lot of people say, hey, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to sew up some masks and donate some masks. I'm like, oh, that's freaking great. Thank you so much. So whatever skill you have, think about doing it for the survivor space. I always let people know the best thing you can do for survivors is get yourself educated before you talk about human trafficking in a public way. That is one thing. Since human trafficking is on the tip of everyone's tongues right now, which as a survivor and as an advocate, I freaking love. It's awesome. But there's a lot of misinformation spreading around out there. So if you are going to be posting about human trafficking on social media, or sexual assault for that matter, please just make sure that your information is accurate. I always direct people to the Polaris Project website, because that is our national statistic and data grabbing service for the United States. So that's always they have the best data set for what we're talking about. And also, I think that one area that we need a lot of help with is in aftercare, is with helping survivors that may go unnoticed. So I don't see a lot of organizations stepping up for our men, boys, or LGBTQ+. That is one area that we are struggling from within a movement, is to have those folks really looked after. We have a lot of organizations that support women and girls, and I love that, and we need more of that. Please, if that's something that's on your heart, please think about starting an organization or getting involved. We need a lot of that, because just statistics and data just show that a large portion of the survivors are women and girls. So we need all the help that we can get, but we do have needs in other ways. So if you're a man and if you don't necessarily feel comfortable working with young girls or women that are survivors, think about starting something for men. There are a lot of men out there that are survivors that need a helping hand. So being an advocate is probably the greatest honor and the greatest privilege I've ever had in my life. Getting an opportunity to work directly with survivors is absolutely the most amazing thing that's ever happened to me. A lot of folks ask me what aftercare looks like to me. Aftercare looks like start walking with that survivor from the point of contact until the survivor decides to end services. Unfortunately, a lot of times we come in contact with survivors through the emergency room after a sexual assault, domestic violence, or human trafficking call. Or we'll get a call from the police department or the jail, or every now and then you have a self-referral through the hotline or another channel. So we walk with those survivors from the point of contact until they end services. And a lot of times that will start off by letting the survivor know that they are not alone, letting them know their rights as a survivor, and then you help them rebuild their life, so that they're not walking this journey alone. And sometimes that looks like signing them up to get a GED. Sometimes that's helping them buy their first house. Sometimes that's helping them go on a date. It could be a little bit of everything, but as a survivor, when you have an opportunity to break free from your abusers, you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders. And I let survivors know that even though I cannot change the weight of the world, I can help make it a little less heavy. And so that is what we work on doing. And so for that, we need organizations like Victims Refuse Silence to really step up and work directly with survivors. There is just nothing more incredible and amazing than seeing other survivors serving and working with other survivors. So I hope that answers some of your questions. If you have more questions, please feel free to check out my Twitter account. I post about this issue relentlessly, like my life depends on it, because someone's life does. So if you want to follow me on my Twitter account, my Twitter is @ElizaBleu, ELIZABLEU. Again, that's @ElizaBleu, ELIZABLEU. And if Twitter isn't your cup of tea, I'm sure I will be meeting you right here back with Victims Refuse Silence, because I'm in it with the long haul for them. I let them know right away. I said, hey, I love what you're doing. I want to help you in any way possible. So we are just beginning. I keep calling 2020 the year of the survivor, and I truly feel like this is the year that human trafficking is really getting the stage that it deserves. This is a big problem, as everyone knows. this year, human trafficking will gross more net profits than the drug trade. So we're looking at $150 billion as reported by Forbes. So we are in the fight for our life. Our most vulnerable are at risk for trafficking if they haven't been already as a result of what we faced this year. So we need all hands on deck. So that means start making your soap. That means get ready. Oh, I wanted to bring this up too. Sorry, you can tell I clearly didn't prepare any type of speech. I'm just rambling, but this is my favorite topic, so I could probably ramble about it forever. But I got a great email the other day, and I think this is a perfect example of my ideas on how folks can help out in aftercare. A massage therapist contacted me, emailed me, and said, hey, so I'm a massage therapist, and myself and my friends would like to, that are also massage therapists, would like to donate our massages to survivors of human trafficking. So right away, I'm like, okay, that's a lot, pause, because a lot of survivors are not in a space, especially right after they've broken free or had the opportunity to break free, that they want to be touched, or even like someone my age would still have a difficult time. So that might be a little bit much. So I said, maybe eventually during group therapy sessions, you could do chair massages with clothes on in a room with other people. I said, but start by finding your local organization, researching them, and ask them if you can donate massages to the advocates, the people that work in the safe house, and the volunteers there. I think that, a lot of these folks that work in the survivor space are working hours that are crushing them, to be honest. This year, folks that work in the survivor space are working hours that are crushing them just because of the massive influx that we've seen this year. So they could really use that sort of little relaxation by getting a massage. So think about starting there. I said also you could donate massages for a fundraising raffle or something like that. So that's one way that you could take a skill and use it to help the organization. You could use it to donate, you could donate hey, I'm doing this and this and this for a raffle for a fundraising event, because a lot of organizations need that cash flow coming in, and something like a massage might go for a lot of money that would inadvertently help quite a few survivors when that comes back. And speaking of raffles, I'm pretty sure today Victims Refuse Silence is doing a ton of raffles, like a ton of raffles. So I would definitely encourage you to donate, get involved. And actually, I'm going to do 2 videos today. So this is my first video. My next video will be about social media. Dun, dun, dun. So thank you so much for letting me speak. I love everybody involved with Victims Refuse Silence, especially Teresa. Teresa, I love you, girl. Hi, everybody. Eliza here, survivor advocate for those affected by human trafficking. Thank you so much to Victims Refuse Silence for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My first video was on survivor aftercare. So if that's something that you're interested in getting involved in, or if you just want to figure out how to help survivors, my first video will explain a little bit more on how you can help to do that. Now, please donate to Victims Refuse Silence. As we know, everything costs money, right? So if you have a little extra change sitting around, please think about donating. So far, Victims Refuse Silence has been completely self-funded. So that's very important. In fact, I know that even the raffle prizes today cost quite a bit of money. So go ahead, think about getting in that raffle, and think about donating. And if for some reason you can't donate, watch my first video and you can find out other ways to get involved in the survivor space. So this video today, I'm going to talk to you about social media. Social media is probably one of our biggest threats, not only to the youth, but to the survivor space. And I first and foremost want to let parents and anyone watching this video know, please get educated on how traffickers and abusers and pedophiles actually manipulate and groom folks online. This is something that isn't often talked about, but needs to be researched and spoken about at length all the time, because these abusers are figuring out how to reach your kids really, really well. They're very manipulative, and it's because of the lockdowns and things like that. Children and the youth are on their phone more than ever. They're on their computer more than ever. They're on their phone more than ever. And Abusers know how to talk to your kids, and they will get them to do things that would be considered trafficking without even leaving the safety of their own home. So what that looks like is an abuser will pretend to be someone their age or someone maybe slightly older and start conversations with them, figure out your child's vulnerabilities, and get them to send them images or videos that would be considered inappropriate and child sexual exploitation material. Also, one thing as an advocate I see is folks pretending that they want to help in the survivor movement or the survivor space with nefarious agendas. So you can do with that as you will, but I firmly believe that anybody that's helping this in the survivor space should be very thoroughly vetted, because we have a lot of nefarious players that just want to be close to victims and survivors. So that is one thing. On a personal note, I have had my rounds with Twitter. As a lot of you folks know, I absolutely love Twitter. In 2020, I have considered Twitter to be my canvas. It has moved me forward not only personally, but professionally, and it's given me an opportunity to have access to a lot of survivors, and I love that. I've had the opportunity to connect with so many survivors through Twitter, so that has been amazing. But there's a dark side to Twitter. Twitter is allowing child sexual exploitation material and human trafficking to live on their platform. Twitter is not alone. A lot of social media platforms are allowing child exploitation and sexual exploitation material to live on their platform. On a personal note, my former traffickers had made a Twitter profile with my name, likeness, and videos and pictures of me. And I still to this day do not know how my old traffickers were using this platform to their benefit. And this is nothing new. This is an MO of my former abusers, and they made a lot of dating profiles and other social media platforms that I was unaware of until recently. Within the last few years. So slowly but surely, we've been taking some of that down. But Twitter, unfortunately, this year, when I reported the profile, they left it up for 3.5 months before taking it down. So that is one area that not only do advocates, but survivors and victims face abuse, is by their traffickers and abusers making profiles without their consent. Oof, a bug. It's true. And then Twitter is not really allowing it to. I can't believe I just had the thing with the bug. I live in the country, so it happens, right? So yeah, so needless to say, that is one area that I am also focusing on. My primary focus as a survivor advocate is on survivor aftercare. But once I became aware of the problems through social media, I started making it an effort to tackle that problem head on. So if this is something that you're interested in, and if you believe that this is something that shouldn't be on your social media platforms and other platforms that you're using, definitely connect with me through Twitter. My Twitter is @ElizaBleu, @ElizaBleu. The truth is that in the United States, it does violate laws that are in place to allow this material to stay active on the platforms. And I truly feel like 2020 is the year that we should be holding the platforms that we use accountable. So I hope that I gave you a little bit of information today. And if you are enjoying this content, and if you don't have a Twitter or social media, I am sure you will see me back here collaborating with Victims Refuse Silence, because nothing brings my heart more joy than collaborating with my fellow survivors. So thank you so much. I hope that everybody's having a great day and a great year.